What's up, guys? Welcome back to this week's Pinball Effects tournament video. Today we'll talk about the taxi table from Williams that we had our one ball tournament on, and then we're still continuing with the new Williams Volume 9. So this week will be a one ball tournament, closed 10 attempts on Williams Pinbot. After Pinbot, we'll finish with Who Done It, and then we'll go back to the Zen Originals. So we're just taking a little excursion here. But first, before I start talking about our tournament, I want to talk to you about Taxi. But the way I want to do it is I kind of want to give you a brief introduction and history into taxi cabs themselves. So the first gasoline-powered taxi cabs arrived in New York City in 1907. So really old, really long time ago. However, there were cities in London, Paris, and Stuttgart, Germany that saw taxi cabs arrive a few years earlier. But what you can already notice is that taxis were kind of born in big cities, right? London, Paris, New York City. And so that's something that you want to keep in mind. Taxis were not, in suburbs or rural places. They were just in major cities. And so this new mode of transportation essentially replaced horse-drawn carriages around cities. So before taxis, the way to get around cities, if you weren't walking, was to take a carriage, right? Which you can still do. Like I think in New York and Central Park, you can still take like horse-drawn carriages around the city, but it's more like not really for transportation. It's more like for just the experience. What's also important is the color yellow. The reason why yellow was chosen for taxi cabs because of its attention getting, to pedestrians who are walking on the street. You can easily tell a taxi cab because it stands out, among all the other cars, right? So you can hail one down and just call for a taxi cab and you can immediately see where it is. So yellow is the color that they chose because when you think about it, in 1907 or, the early 1900s, people, cars, were not yellow. So taxi cabs definitely stood out, right? And also taxi cabs were an important option to taking, otherwise public transportation, like trains or, rail systems. So, with public transportation, you have to follow their schedule, and sometimes it can be crowded, and if you have to get somewhere that doesn't fit their schedule, it would be better to take a taxi and a lot less crowded, and it's a little more like personal, right? With a taxi, passengers could basically choose their destination, which is very much still the case, whereas something like mass transit, like a subway system, gets off at these specific destinations, and then you have to find your way around afterwards, right? So the subway might get off at Grand Central Station, but your appointment might be on this street, so you have to walk. A taxi can take you from wherever you are to wherever you want to go, without having to make any more turns in your schedule. So that's another thing that was important to note about taxis. Also, most taxi drivers, even today and around that time, kind of knew their way around most cities. And sometimes I'd say taxi drivers knew the cities so well, they might even know shortcuts so they could get you there faster. And so it kind of brings me to my next idea, how today you still have some taxis with GPS inside, the front dash, but most taxi cab drivers kind of have been living in the city, really know the city streets, so they kind of use it by, muscle memory. but you'll still see some taxis with a GPS equipped. And what's also interesting about early taxi cabs is the taximeter, which is the fare meter that some taxis use to determine the price of the fare, which basically calculates total distance and time it took. So that's what you see on Williams' taxi table, that taxi fare meter, which is a nice touch actually. So that's basically a little bit of how taxis started, taxi cabs. You want to remember that they first started in London and Paris, in cities like Stuttgart in Germany. So they really started a little earlier in European cities. Then they, crossed the Atlantic Ocean to New York City in 1907, and they are still a part of, American culture, big city life. Something else I want to kind of talk about is how rideshare apps like Uber have sort of replaced taxis in some cities and suburbs, because with things like Uber, there's some positives and negatives. Basically, taxis, you'll find them more dominant in heavily populated cities like New York City or Chicago. And with a taxi service, it's licensed. You have to have a license to operate a taxi, and usually those licenses and their guidelines are kind of strict because they're operated by the city itself. Whereas if you're an Uber driver, it's a lot less regulated, and Uber drivers will usually use their own cars. It's also more app friendly, so you can just open your phone, use the app, and get everything ready. Whereas with a taxi, you still might have to call the taxi cab service, and they might have to send a dash signal to their cabbies, and do all that stuff. So it's a little more of like an older style. But with a taxi, when you're in the city like New York, you wouldn't want to call an Uber per se if you can just hail down a taxi. But things have changed. It might even be better calling Uber. But that's something to keep in mind. I think also Ubers are a little more out of city friendly and more flexible because of that less regulation. And so I think Ubers, whereas taxis are more within the confines of the city itself, Uber drivers can kind of go, really miles out of the city itself. So, but I haven't ridden a taxi in like a long time. I can't remember. I think I've ridden an Uber once. I can't even remember if I have ridden an Uber. But the general concept is the same. But taxis are kind of where, you get the start of kind of personalized transportation that's not public. It's more like, private transport, right? So moving on from this, now that we understand a little bit about the brief history of taxi cabs, there's a lot of, taxi cabs and references to taxis in popular culture. So to me, and maybe to many, taxis are a symbol of Americana, big city life, almost synonymous with New York City culture, right? Like, you can't think of New York without thinking about taxis or, in your mind, seeing a taxi, right? It's almost like this just goes hand in hand. There have been movies such as Taxi Driver from 1976, which I saw a couple of years ago. Really liked it. A Martin Scorsese film starring Robert De Niro. You have a more modern one called Collateral from 2004, starring Tom Cruise and Jamie Foxx. I have not seen that one in its entirety, so I may want to watch that again. But you also have shows. You had a sitcom called Taxi from 1978 that ran till 1983 about New York City taxi drivers, starring the late Andy Kaufman and Danny DeVito. There was even an HBO series called Cash Cab, as well as Taxi Cab Confessions, where they had like hidden cameras and they were able to capture these taxi cab confessions. So that's sort of, taxi culture in, popular culture in America, which I found interesting. There's even games. Isn't there like a game, like a taxi game? I don't know if there's a taxi game, but there's, I think of, what's that game where you're picking up different passengers? Why can't I remember this game? You have to search a game where you pick up passengers. Crazy Taxi. Oh my gosh, how can I be so Crazy Taxi from the Crazy Taxi series from like Dreamcast and the arcade. So that was something I just thought of right now. I can't believe it was just all Crazy Taxi. But you have games like that, and you could probably think of more. But yeah, that's basically what I wanted to say about taxis. In short, taxis really started in Europe. They started in big cities. They replaced horse-drawn carriages. They were an alternative to public transportation. They were a little more private, so you had to pay a little more money. You had the fare meter, the taxi meter, and now they've sort of been replaced by Uber. But Uber and taxis are sort of the same concept, right? Where you can kind of pick where you want to go, and you have to pay a fare. It's just sort of changed in how it's done. And taxis in popular culture, movies like Taxi Driver, Collateral, sitcoms Taxi, Cash Cab, Taxi Cab Confessions, games like Crazy Taxi on Dreamcast and arcades. So I hope you enjoyed that piece. I really enjoyed kind of learning about taxis. That's what I like to do when I make these videos. I kind of like to bring up a different starting point. But now let's talk about why I like Taxi as a table. I love the personality of Taxi. This table has so much personality, from the artwork to the call-outs to the music and the jingles. You really feel like you are the taxi driver picking up Dracula, Santa, Pinbot, Gorby, and Lola. And the call-outs are just... I know they can get a bit annoying hearing the same thing. Hey, yo, taxi! Pinbot stranded, comrade, pick me up, right? Give to me ride, right? Those do get a little bit annoying after a while, but that's just part of the personality. The artwork, it's hand drawn, and it's just like it's so much like it looks like a cartoon that like the taxi cab table itself might even have been a good cartoon, right? Like imagine if Williams Pinball went into like the cartoon industry and made a cartoon on Taxi. That is an idea. Because as you know, Bally went into coin machines and fitness. Why didn't they go into TV, right? So I love the personality of Taxi. You don't really see this sort of the same personality anymore, because even today, when you're talking about Stern tables, they're based off IPs, and those IPs have their own personality, and it's more to do with the IP itself. Whereas a table like Taxi is it's not based off an IP, but it's got its own universe, sort of, I love the taxi meter mechanic that you can see. Makes you feel like you're at a taxi, that you're driving a taxi. I love the spin out skill shot in the beginning, where you can see you're using that that funnel, and the ball's rotating as if a real like car was spinning out. And it's an interesting mechanic because while the 100,000 might seem like the best, thing to get, I think the 25,000 reward and spotting a passenger might be a little better, depending on who you have to pick up. Because Gorby is an easy pickup. I think the harder ones are Pinbot, Santa, Lola, especially Lola, and sometimes Drac. But it might be something that you think about when you're making the skill shot, not always just to go for the 100,000. The Joyride Awards were pretty fun as well, especially the Mystery Award, because it's kind of random. The Joyride Award can be also crucial in like spotting a passenger or even a special. The artwork of the playfield, the bird's eye view, where you see the roads, the ramps look like highways. It just looks like you're in the inner city, like picking up people to go to an airport. So I love that bird's eye view of you can see the traffic lights, the road, the taxi cabs, just the cars, and added with the sound effects of this table. The sound effects are really good. The cat screeching, Dracula's call-outs, the sounds of the roads and the taxi speeding up. It's just a table that really uses, sound and imagery and artwork and really couples it together really nice. The gameplay as well. Mark Ritchie's signature crisscrossing ramps adds a layer of satisfaction and difficulty, because when you can hit those ramps and time them, it just feels so awesome. It kind of feels like you're driving around the city. It's like Pinball's version of Crazy Taxi, I want to say. Kind of, yeah, exactly. And now I'm thinking, where was the Crazy Taxi pinball machine that we never got, right? How awesome would that have been? Because wasn't Crazy Taxi from Sega? So Sega could have made it maybe if they were still in the pinball biz. And you just have really recognizable music and jingles. You can play like a jingle or the music from Taxi, and I bet you most people will know what table they're referring to, right? And honestly, Taxi is a table that I think the more you play it, the better it gets. Because some tables you play it and it just seems like, okay, I've played this 1,000 times, I know what to do. But with Taxi, it's like it kind of feels fresh. I don't know. So yeah, those are some of the things I enjoyed about the Taxi mechanics on the pinball machine. But now let's look at the leaderboard here. So we had a lot of people. We had around 39 people in this open tournament. A lot of people have been playing the new Williams tables, which is great. So yeah, let's go over the scores here. So first place we have Gapvic, one of our regulars, with 4 million points. Congratulations to Gapvic. That's an impressive score with one ball. I don't know how to. I think for me, what I realized was kind of maybe because there's so many ways to go about it to get points on this table, which is what I like. But maybe it's getting the jackpot, increasing the jackpot, doing that stuff. Maybe it's the 2-ball multi-ball, getting in the express lane and then hitting the ramps. But I think it may be just the jackpot and then the 2-ball multi-ball. I think that's the bread and butter of this table. But congratulations to Gapvic. Nice to see him in first place. He's a Williams guy, so there you go. In second place, Rock and Rog with 3 million, close to 4 million. Third place, we have Randy45 with 3 million points. In fourth place, we have my friend Urko1945 with 2 million points, close to 3 million. Fifth place, we have Krobs with 2,716,000. Very close scores to Urko. Very close. See? That could be the difference between like a skill shot maybe, right? Or a passenger pickup. Going down the list, we have UTD 4000, another regular in 7th with 2,585,000. Carpy Sun in 8th with 1 million, close to 2 million. Nonchalance in 9th with 1 million points as well. Genuines with 1 million points. So very close scores here at 8th, 9th, and 10th. I came in 11th with 1 million points, and I was just happy to be above Balchi here. So King Balchi is below me here. But congratulations to King Balchi for 1,567,000, because that's still an impressive score. But it's just nice to see the arch nemesis next to each other like this. And in 13th place, Midnight, who has also been on our channel in our tournaments recently with 1,431,000. Congratulations to Midnight there. Going down the list, Devonicals in 17th place with 1 million. Just going down names I'm familiar with. If I haven't read your name, I apologize. Robozon with 632,000 in 29th. I like this name. Silverball 71 in 31st place. V-Pin Attic in 34th. And so, yeah, that's about everyone. And so we're going to create our tournament now on Pinbot. Jabba has been playing this a lot. He told me a little bit about how the skill shot works. So I'm going to see if I can remember and do that. It's going to be a private tournament. We're going to do one ball challenge, right? Realistic physics. Limited to 10 attempts this time. So 6 days. So 6 days, 10 attempts. Realistic one ball private. So what is today? I usually make the is it the 20th, August 20th. So 8, 20, 25. Let's do this. Okay, wait. Try adjusting them or check the crossplay settings to see it. Wait, crossplay settings. Did I do crossplay? Yeah, I have crossplay on. But it shouldn't be, right? Oh, I have to change something. It's not finished. It's active, right? Okay. So here it is. This is the ID, which will be written down. And the password is 8/20/25. Here we go. So what I like about this table is how, like, you look at it and you can't think of you can't help but think about Bride of Pinbot and Jackbot. Okay, so this is a cool skill shot. Oh, I should have went for the. But let me mind you guys, this is a tough table, so be very careful. That green target is crucial, I remember. Okay. Love this pachinko style thing. Okay. So now we have it goes back to plunger. We can try for that 100. Oh no. I know Jabba said he got it close to like 900,000. Maybe it's just to keep on hitting the ramp. Because I'm scared to hit the targets in the middle. You know? I feel safer doing this. Oh no, I should probably take the pop off. Okay, the bonus is lit. No! Okay, one more time. This will be a fun table, but with 10 attempts, it's gonna be difficult, so practice is key, right? See the eyes of the Pinbot? Okay, go for that 100. There you go. See, that already... That's a huge difference, right, between 20,000 and 100. Oh no. Oh no. Okay, here, we lock the balls for the eyes. That ball spin. Okay, bonus. Okay, don't forget about the post, guys. There we go. Now let's go for the 100,000. Oh man. Okay, we gotta lock the other eye. Oh no! No! Why didn't I nudge? The slings, man. It's always the slings. Well, guys, thank you for watching me play this week's tournament. I'm enjoying these new Williams tables, and I hope you guys will have fun with this week's challenge on Pinbot. So until next time, catch you guys later. Take care.